Today in Formula 2, Behrman drives on square tires, ART wants new drivers, and a Viking charges through. Alright, welcome back. So the Formula 2 feature race just finished, so I'm going to go over all the action and give my thoughts as well. So Martin started on pole, and Behrman started alongside on the front row. So of course for this race, Pourchaire, who was originally supposed to start P3, starts P8 because he got a 5-place grid penalty for that clattering into Behrman in the sprint race yesterday. So lap 1, great start by Behrman. He goes P1 to take the lead at turn 1. Doohan tries to go down the middle, kind of Singapore 2017 style. Luckily he doesn't go full send, and all three go through the first corner fine. So pressure from Doohan on Martin's right away, and Leclerc Fittipaldi wheel to wheel through several corners, going from turn 13, the hairpin, all the way down to turn 22. So that was good to see. Lap 2, Boschung skips turn 1 in battle with Crawford. So this would happen several times. Cars would just kind of jump over, skip turn 1, 2, just to keep position. Benavides stopped at the end of the runoff area. It looked like there was a collision of some kind with Cordial. They didn't show a replay, so we didn't really get to see what happened. But anyway, the VSC comes out and he goes straight down to the end of the runoff area at turn 1 and retires. Lap 3, the VSC ends the start of the lap, so we're back to racing very quickly. Lap 4, good battling between Doohan's and Martin's, so the battle from the first lap continues, so good to see that. Lap 5, Novalak and Leclerc exchange positions, so they're kind of swapping back and forth in the lower positions. And a lot less aggressive overtakes, a lot less overtakes in general than in the sprint race at this point. So really, most of the cars that were on starting on the super soft tires, and they were really in early tire management modes. So they were just trying to get the softs as far as they could to the end of their stint, and they weren't really going super aggressive and trying to fight other cars. Lap 6, almost what appears to be 6 wide going into turn 1 in the midfield from positions about 14 to 20. So Stanek, Versure, Maloney, Fittipaldi, a bunch of those cars were all there. So it was nice to see. All pretty clean. I think a couple cars got forced off wide at turn 2, but nothing major. Lap 7. So this is where the pit stops start. So Doohan and Vesti both pit. So do Iwasa, Pourchaire, Maini, Hauger, Nissany, and Correa. And I think cars just really want to get off the softs. The softs were not a good race tire today, and I think that would prove to be the true later on. And we'll see how strong overcutting is here. Is what I wrote down. So was not super strong, but it was decent, especially with the alternatives that we'll see later. Lap 8, Behrman, Martins, Daruvala, Boschung, and Fittipaldi. No, that's not Fittipaldi. Someone pit as well. So at this point, Leclerc, Hadjar, Maloney, Versure, Stanek were going for the alternative strategy. So it will be interesting to see how this strategy plays out. So at this point, Maini gets a 5-second penalty for forcing car off track. We didn't get to see that. Vesti gets ahead of Doohan through the pits. Then poor stop for Pourchaire, and he gets passed by Hauger among a bunch of other cars, who was 12th going into the pit cycle. Crawford pits, come out virtual 10th place, so probably about 15th, 16th place. In reality, 10th place, Martins seems to cut turn 1 passing Behrman and gives the place back, which he had to do, otherwise he would have gotten a time penalty. Martins goes deep, but stays ahead going into turn 1, trying to overtake Behrman, so he gets the overtake done, even though he was very deep going into turn 1. Behrman gets passed by Vesti after being kind of pushed wide by Martins on the exit of turn 2. It was very similar to some of the moves that we saw yesterday, and those were not penalized. So I'm glad that that move was not penalized, even though it was under investigation. Let's see, lap 13, Versure passes Hadjar for P2 at turn 1. So of course both Versure and Hadjar are on the alternative strategy. so they're a bit out of position at this point. Cordio was given a 10-second penalty for causing a collision, so that was the collision with Benavides that we didn't really get to see. Lap 14, Stanek cuts turn 2 to stay ahead of Maloney. Probably will get a penalty for that, which I wrote, and it turns out they did get a penalty for that. So at this point, the Martins-Behrman was under investigation. Lap 15, Pourchaire overtakes Crawford for P15 at turn 1. So at this point, it was kind of going absolutely nowhere for Pourchaire. He started 8th, moved up to 7th, then fell down to basically what was a virtual 12th through the pits. And yeah, not going super well for Pourchaire after an absolutely dominating win in Bahrain. Lap 16, Martins and Vestiaire very close. This is where kind of all the action kicks off. Behrman spins at turn 22, and he drops to 11th. Just looks like a snap of oversteer kind of going into the corner, and he just kind of goes off in the runoff area, has to let a bunch of cars through, and he's able to continue on his way. Unfortunately, the next car to spin would not be so lucky. So the following lap, lap 17, Martin spins at turn 4, I think. Car stalls, and he kind of eventually gets it over to the runoff area, but then with tires basically. So BSE comes out, and it was a really strange spin. Car just kind of seemed to spin around. There was very little. It's not really traditionally a corner that we've seen a lot of mistakes, a lot of spins at. And there was no lockup either, so the car just kind of spun itself around. So looked like a mistake, but it's possible it was something on the car simply broke and sometimes that can cause the car to just go into a spin if there's a really sudden issue with the car. So lap 18 VSC ends. Lap 19 Maloney pits, comes out 18th. So Maloney was the first of the alternative runners to pits. I think he pit a little too early. Should have tried to eke out, I think, 2 to 3 more laps on those medium tires. I think he would have been in good shape, because all of the other cars on the prime strategy who are on the mediums, their mediums are degrading, so they're slightly going slower. Well, he's going slower too, but by switching to the softs, you have to go to the pits, and then you have to get the tires warmed up, and that can cost you a lot of time. Let's see, yes, so lap 20, cars on the alternative strategy don't think the super soft will last long, so they're going as far as possible in the mediums. That was via Verschoor's radio. Lap 21, Behrman saying his tires are dead from the spin, so he basically locked the tires, and now he has these massive flat spots on them, so he's effectively driving on a 50 pence piece, which, if you don't know, is basically like a hexagon, so they're not circular there, and which is going to be incredibly uncomfortable to drive on, and also incredibly slow. Verschoor pits, comes out 10th place, so really good. So you can see basically, I know Verschoor was ahead of Maloney, but basically Verschoor comes out 10th, Maloney comes out 18th. So I think just staying out that lap or two longer really helped. Also being ahead on track also helps as well, but I think if Maloney had lasted a little bit longer, he could have come out a couple places ahead. Lap 22, Hauger passes Behrman for 8th at turn 1, and following lap, Verschoor passes Behrman for 9th at turn 1. So Behrman's day gets worse and worse. Leclerc is on his in-lap, he's told to push. So Leclerc, who was the leader of the alternative runners, pits, and yes, slow stop for Leclerc, and he comes out 9th. So not great for Leclerc there. Hadjar, Stanek also pit, and they're 11th and 14th respectively. 25th, lap 25, Nissany overtakes Pourchaire at turn 27 for P13, but then Pourchaire comes back and retakes position at turn 1. Let's see. So Verschoor says on the radio he thinks he pits too early, although at this point he was the highest of the alternative runners because Leclerc had a very slow stop. So Leclerc very close to Behrman, lap 26, and he overtakes him for P8 at turn 1. Hadjar overtakes Miney for P10 at turn 1, and at this point Stanek gets a 5-second penalty for leaving the track and getting advantage. Probably the turn 1 incident that I mentioned all the way back at near the start of the race, where he overtook, yes, there he is, lap 14 where he overtook, kind of cut turn 1 and stayed ahead of Maloney. So lap 27, Hadjar putting pressure on Behrman, and Hadjar passes Behrman for P9 at turn 27. Final lap, lap 28, Behrman tries to stick it down the inside, but Vesti takes, stick it down the inside, probably try to retake the position from Hadjar, and Vesti takes the line for first place. So the result is first place Vesti, second Doohan, third Daruvala, fourth Iwasa, fifth Hauger, sixth Versure, seventh Fittipaldi, eighth Leclerc, who also gets fastest lap, 9th Hadjar, 10th Behrman, 11th Nissany, 12th Maini, 13th Pourchaire, 14th Stanek, 15th Crawford, 16th Novalak, 17th Maloney, 18th Correa, 19th Boschung, 20th Cordial, and your retirements are Martins and Benavides. Your championship standings. So after round 2, 4 races into the season, Boschung continues to lead the championship with 33 points, Pourchaire second with 32, Iwasa moves up points-wise, third with 31 points, fourth Vesti 28 points, fifth Daruvala 24 points, sixth Doohan 20 points, seventh Hauger 19 points, eighth Versure also 19 points, Maini 8th 18 points, 9th Martins 17 points, 10th Martins 17 points, 11th Maloney 15 points, 12th Leclerc 13 points, 13th Fittipaldi 9 points, 14th Hadjar 8 points, 15th Juan Manuel Correa 1 point, 16th Behrman 1 point. Crawford, Nissany, Novalak, Stanek, Cordio, and Benavides all on 0 points. So overall, pretty good race, I thought. A lot less overtaking than yesterday. I think some of the teams will be very happy with that. Vesti obviously going from P6 on the grid to P1. Other teams like ART going from after qualifying first and third, and then having to be demoted to first and 8th because of Pourchaire's penalty, to then one car retiring and one car finishing 13th. So overall, really poor from the ART drivers, assuming that was a mistake from Martins. Of course, it's possible it was reliability, but overall, pretty solid race. Next race is going to be in 2 weeks' time, Australia. So first time that the F2 drivers are ever going to Australia, so that should be pretty exciting. So until then, thank you so much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. It really helps out. And please leave your thoughts down below. What did you think of the video? Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.